Hi, I'm Dave Caro with BlazeMeter. Welcome to Getting Started with BlazeMeter. Here's the agenda for this course. This first module is BlazeMeter Overview. Let's jump right in. So what is BlazeMeter? First of all, we describe it as democratizing performance testing in the continuous delivery era. And really what that means is that historically, performance testing is a centralized function done by specialists with a small number of specialists and generally a long waiting time to get through to that lab. And we're creating an environment where performance testing can happen throughout the development organization by democratizing, by spreading access to all, and by making it something that can be done in the time frame that continuous delivery demands. So let's talk a little bit more about what is BlazeMeter. It's a SaaS and on-premise performance testing platform designed to help DevOps and Agile teams begin web, mobile, microservices, and API testing early in the software development lifecycle, and then reuse these tests all the way through to production. Let's look a little deeper. First of all, it's pure SaaS. Use a browser and collaborate over the web. You can work from wherever you are, and there's nothing to install. 100% open source compatibility, we often call this load and go, means that you can take an existing open source test and simply upload it and it'll run. There's no refactoring or recompiling the test. If it's an existing open source test, it'll run. So there's nothing new to learn. There's over 30 geographic locations, and you can also test from behind the firewall. It's massively scalable, so the same solution which works on a developer desktop can work in an integration lab, a pre-production, or even production facility, all the way up to 2 million users or beyond. And then finally, it's been designed from the ground up to boost productivity for continuous integration testing. Everything is easily integrated, and we'll see more in a bit. Comprehensive reporting. And not just comprehensive, but easily shared, so collaborative reporting. So you can create reports in real time from your tests, and they're easily shared with any member of your team or even externally. And finally, integration with APM tools, CI/CD frameworks, and a REST-based API that means that anything you can do within the web portal, you can do from an API call. So looking at it at a little higher level, it takes open source technology like Locust, Gatling, JMeter, Selenium, and makes it enterprise grade, adding enterprise features and integrations, reporting and scalability, security, and support. So another way to look at CA BlazeMeter, one performance testing platform with all the essentials. It's really the only available solution that can simulate tests from the cloud and behind your firewall using open source scripts, but also allowing you to record your script automatically, run large load tests and automated continuous performance testing from the same solution, be extremely fast, and yet meet enterprise needs. Sometimes we're asked, since this is based on open source, what's the difference between open source and using the commercial product? So you'll notice that everyone has access to the JMeter UI, to JMeter plugins, and even the Taurus domain-specific language. Those are all open source. But as you go further down here, BlazeMeter can help you develop custom plugins, and then there's the features which are specific to the commercial solution. Being able to run your tests in parallel, meaning you can run dozens or hundreds of tests at the same time, which means that you can shorten test windows. Infrastructure on demand. No need to set up machines or rely on a lab or access to a lab to get things done. It's purely elastic, right? A secure mobile app recorder, which allows you to record secure sessions between a mobile app and your back end in order to build scripts. And then finally, BlazeMeter provides test orchestration, aggregating, and reporting. So it gives you an enterprise ability to orchestrate tests, to aggregate test results, and to report to anyone that needs the information. One of the keys to BlazeMeter is that it allows cross-enterprise test automation so that anyone who needs to run a test can run it right when they need to and get the results right away. This is very different than having a center of excellence where tests must be submitted to a queue where people will then manually decide when to run the tests and get back to you with the results. The idea here is that testing happens continuously and it happens with no delays at all. Starting with the developer and working all the way down to operations, you can actually run tests and use the tools you're familiar with to control them, to report the results, and to monitor the back-end health during the tests. And when anything goes wrong, you alert a developer on failure so that the problem can be solved quickly. So when the process breaks, let's say a threshold is exceeded or an error levels are exceeded, immediately notifying the developer so that they can be right on top of it instead of something that is happening in a delayed format. Performance testing for mobile apps is essential, and what BlazeMeter allows you to do is use a online proxy. You redirect traffic from the mobile device to the online proxy. It'll capture the request to the back end and as the session is going, and then export the results in what we call a smart JMX or a torus file format, which allows you to build tests, execute them on the CA BlazeMeter platform. CA BlazeMeter supports testing inside the firewall by a number of techniques. First of all, you could whitelist a range of IP addresses if you wanted to, so that you could use our public cloud to deliver load inside the firewall. More likely, you would have dedicated IPs which you can rent, which allows you to use a range of systems that you've set aside to hit your backends where you have known IP addresses ahead of time. And then the most flexible way to do this is to have on-premise load generators, and this is particularly useful for high volume, lower amounts of load where you want to run a lot of tests and you're running them inside the firewall. And again, the parallel use case, maybe you want to be able to run 100 tests at the same time for large teams. On-premise load generators let you put the load generation inside your firewall and still benefit from all the control and reporting of the SaaS-based solution. In order to do on-premise using the private locations feature, it's actually very straightforward. You merely ask the system to generate an environment for you. You then download a Docker container and you launch it. And there are no incoming requests from the cloud needed. It's just strictly outbound, which is firewall friendly. The agent sends outgoing requests to BlazeMeter to check to see if any tests need to be run. And when it has work to do, it comes to life and sends the results up. So that the on-premise servers will send traffic to your inside the firewall application and send data back to BlazeMeter for real-time reporting. Let's take a look at the CA BlazeMeter components at a high level. First of all, execution. So the ability to run any test, whether on the cloud or on-premise, leveraging open source tools. Reporting. So the SaaS portal enables real-time results analysis, graphing that's very intuitive, easy comparing between tests, and flexible reporting that meets your needs based on whether you want to share with someone outside the system or just send a URL to someone who also has access. Collaboration. So there's features like organizations and test sharing which allow you to work together and correct problems quickly, and also to keep the list of tests sort of limited to the team that is likely to be working on it. So you're not all in one big huge list, but there's projects and then there's also work groups. So you have flexibility in controlling who has access to the system and whether they can create tests or merely view the results. And then continuous integration. With our Torus tool, we provide an automation-friendly framework for continuous testing. So this gets beyond the simple idea of a plugin and lets you use a domain-specific language and command line integration, CLI, to get a lot of things done. Here's a look at how the cloud providers line up. Basically, we have all of the Amazon, Google, and Azure locations, and we also have the ability to add your own private locations. And we have something called a sandbox for running small tests on very short notice, just when you're debugging and making sure everything is working right. Shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about BlazeMeter Sense. BlazeMeter Sense was originally called Lotus Sophia, and it is at sense.blazemeter.com that provides performance testing analytics where you upload the results of a test and it slices and dices the data, providing insights for you. Let's just jump over and take a look at a sample report real quick here. Okay, here we are on BlazeMeter Sense, and you'll notice that someone has run a test here, and the test had some issues that happened here. And if we scroll down, we're seeing very easily brought to life that the various things that happened. This Java Net a sock exception happened here that caused a lot of trouble, and we have other ways to visualize the data. But one of the nicest things about BlazeMeter Sense, it actually understands what's happening in your test. It knows what is ramp up, what is the constant stage, and what's the leftovers. And notice here, the virtual users to saturation was 184 users. If you notice here, the first error was here, but the system knows that right about here the response time spiked, and so this was where saturation had occurred. So helping you to kind of make some of these conclusions a little more quickly, that's one of the roles of BlazeMeter Sense. And this lets you, again, it's open source compatible, so you upload your test results files and the results are generated. You can analyze results over multiple reports using tables and charts, and you can also bring in data from the back end and the front end and to compare the KPIs over time. This functionality will eventually be merged into BlazeMeter's main platform or deprecated once all the features are there in BlazeMeter. Again, it's at sense.blazemeter.com. So that wraps up our first module. The next module coming up will be the BlazeMeter account signup.